Oh, the beaches, the mountains, the exotic locales, the food, the sights, the people. Just a few of the reasons Americans love to get away. But the wound inflicted on the travel industry by COVID-19 runs deep. Canceled concerts, closed borders, and global restrictions have grounded our plans to move about the country and the world. In some cases, bookings are down an astonishing 95%.
Since the birth of aviation, we've never seen two shocks of this magnitude.
A near catastrophic nosedive for the travel industry. Now, the million-dollar question is, will travel as we once knew it ever return?
Obviously a huge question.
At the moment, there's no crystal ball.
Tell me, are we going to have a vaccine?
But most experts agree there are glimmers of hope as we try to quench our collective thirst for adventure.
There is a pent-up demand for travel.
There is still pent-up demand and a deep-rooted desire to explore far-reaching corners of the earth.
So when will people really feel comfortable taking those longer flights, say, to the beach?
Or will we avoid that altogether and hop in the car for a scenic road trip somewhere a little closer to home?
All good questions we'll try to answer for you with an insatiable appetite for adventure.
Everything's up in the air. I can't predict the future. Nobody can.
Still, there is optimism as we head into the holiday travel season and soon a new year.
It's going to be a sort of a year of the return.
Hop in as we take a 360 spin across the country and around the world in this special report, Vacation 2020. Where do we go from here?
Hello and thanks for joining us. I'm Sean Toll, joining you from, well, Hollywood, California. And yes, I get it. This is not the most exotic location to travel to. We were actually hoping to do this from Hawaii or the Virgin Islands, but unfortunately, at the time we're doing this, we can't right now. And that's the whole point. But once we can go to these places again, what is it going to look like? Oh, the places we long to go and the things we really want to do. The world is a beautiful place waiting to be explored, just a flight away.
Aviation, the airline business, is an essential service because they need to go see their loved ones. They need to travel for work.
But this pandemic has changed the way we live and obviously how we vacation.
The COVID pandemic has really changed the entire industry and the way that we all travel.
The safety protocols are numerous.
These are our Sani wipes, and we give them to every single passenger as they board the aircraft.
To mask mandates on airplanes, deep cleanings between flights are something we never would have dreamt of when thinking about the exotic locations we've been imagining we'd visit.
It's really about a multi-layered approach to ensure that we're doing everything we can to keep customers feeling confident and safe when they fly.
The experience is a far different one than what we're used to, and don't expect it to disappear.
We're going to continue to do this as long as needed, because until there is a vaccine and widespread distribution of that vaccine through the entire population, this will be a way of life for us.
A way of life for an industry now struggling both in the sky and the terminals.
We are seeing a slow recovery. Like every airport in America, we really hit bottom in the spring.
DIA says they're down, but there's positive signs on the horizon.
We're down to about 40%, so we're seeing a steady growth come back up. We are seeing growth faster than the rest of the airports in the United States, so we're very pleased to see that happen.
They're getting flights back to Europe, even though Americans can't go to the EU, and adding non-stops to Central America.
Next year, maybe another 20% increase. The following year, another 20% increase. That said, if we get a vaccine and if people, can travel, if the international travel, comes back quicker, we could see a much faster recovery next year. But, I don't have an 8-ball here, but that's probably the most secure thing I could use to tell you what's going to happen.
But people are still coming through. And as we move forward, the airport physically will look different.
Our airline partners have reconfirmed with us they want those two projects to move ahead as quickly as possible. They've signed up for the gates, they're leased, and they want them to stay on schedule.
Gate projects are moving ahead of schedule due to the lack of travelers in the airport. But the Great Hall project did hit another snag due to budget concerns.
And looking at long-term, what makes the most sense for the airport, its continued growth, and where we're headed, we all landed on that this interim step moved them in the right direction.
So it won't be as planned, but they still hope it gets off the ground.
Colorado, our lifeblood is tourism. We need tourists here. That's going to help us recover as a state. The unfortunate thing is these are things we cannot control.
Flight cuts have already happened. Now with federal money from the CARES Act gone, layoffs, furloughs, and flight costs are increasing.
Next year, they'll be conserving cash. They'll have a smaller footprint, smaller number of flights. There actually will be less flights to regional markets. So for that, they'll end up you'll be paying more for the flights that you do take next year.
Financial experts expect this to be a slow recovery.
So if you extrapolate the past to predict the future, then to get to pre-COVID levels, we're looking at potentially at least 3 to 4 years.
To put it in perspective, the industry is trying to rebound from 9/11 and the 2008 recession all at once. In a year where unprecedented is cliche to say, this is unprecedented.
Pessimistic view is 5 to 10 years before we get back to where we were in 2019. Is it safe to fly? I think each person has to make that decision for themselves and for their family. Certainly the airlines, the industry have done everything they can.
And that's part of it all. When will we feel safe again to hop on a plane?
Tell me, are we going to have a vaccine?
Recent vaccine news has given hope to the airline industry limping through what would usually be a busy time of year. And that's a huge catalyst going forward.
The future of aviation is really contingent on 3 factors. The virus, and you can include a vaccine in that. The economy, and how we stimulate that economy over the next year. And government actions, specifically opening up international routes and global trade.
Both the airlines and airports are adamantly pushing health and safety is not being overlooked.
Planes and airports have never been as clean or as safe as they are today.
We're spending a lot of time and effort into cleaning and figuring out the right processes to do. But we never put a dollar value on safety as an airline, and we're certainly not doing that when it comes to the steps we're taking to keep our employees and our customers safe.
Because they all believe that we'll be hitting our favorite spots and bucket list spots eventually.
This is a resilient industry. We know it's going to come back. We don't know exactly when we're going to hit 69 million passengers again, but we know we will.
Obviously, a lot is still up in the air as far as the airlines are concerned, but even if you do feel safe enough to fly again, what's it going to look like when you actually get there? What are those hotel accommodations going to be like? And for that, we send it just a little south of here to Russell Haythorne, who's in Scottsdale, Arizona.
We're happy to report as much as things have changed, they've also remained the same. Here at the beautiful Hyatt Regency Gainey Ranch, for example, the grounds are still perfectly manicured, the rooms just as luxurious, and the service still impeccable, albeit a little different in the COVID era. Hotel stays can still be great, no matter where you're going. But perhaps right now it's especially nice if you're heading to warmer destinations, like the Arizona desert here, where you can spend much, if not most of your time outdoors in a less risky environment for COVID spread.
Between the 4th and 5th, and then what part is it?
But even colder weather destinations, like Colorado, believe they still have plenty to offer.
That's the beautiful part about Denver, right? We get 300 days of sunshine each year. You can be outside.
There's certainly no question the hospitality industry is feeling the pain of COVID's crushing economic toll.
I think until the consumer confidence and safety is there, the industry is going to be dramatically affected.
Kevin Bird served as the food and beverage coordinator at one of downtown Denver's most exceptional hotels until he had to furlough most of his staff last spring, only to then be furloughed himself shortly after that.
The hotel I worked at was, constantly full, and instantly overnight, the cancellations went through the roof, and it was a ghost town.
Quiet and lonely has become the new normal downtown, and for the hospitality industry, fewer people on the streets means fewer people in hotel rooms.
Whether you have restrictions or not, if people don't feel safe to go out, it doesn't matter if your business is open, they're not coming.
Walter Eisenberg is the president and CEO of Sage Hospitality Group, which owns and operates dozens of hotels across the country, including the Oxford Hotel and the Crawford Hotel, both in the Mile High City. In Denver, hotel occupancy in October 2019 was 78%, according to Visit Denver. In 2020, hotel occupancy dropped to below half full at just 47%.
We're really expecting that this winter, probably through February, maybe March of next year, are just going to be really, really difficult for our business.
But there are glimmers of hope this holiday season.
Obviously, our number one priority is to keep all of our guests and travelers safe. Be my little Santa and love me all the time.
At Union Station, the lights are up and the Christmas tree is back this holiday season for families and tourists to enjoy while out for a stroll or even if they're just driving by. And Union Station manager Tiffany Owen says they are working hard to keep things open.
All of our patios have been significantly expanded, and we have heaters and everything for people to enjoy during these colder winter months.
Eisenberg says all you can really do is keep an optimistic eye on the future because there's no question in his mind whatsoever things will eventually get better.
And we believe when consumers feel safe again to go out, that's really when we're going to see the big shift. People ask the question, right, all the time. They say, hey, how you doing, right? That's a normal kind of response we have for people. And I say I have two possible answers. I say, how do you think I'm doing? I'm in the hotel and restaurant business in the middle of a pandemic. That's one answer you could give. What I've said from the very beginning is, I woke up this morning and we were one day closer to a vaccine.
Yeah.
Bird agrees travel will come roaring back at some point, and the industry will be ready.
They're quick on their feet and they'll change with the times. The industry will be back. It may not be exactly what we were used to, but it will be back.
And then travel for families and tourists will look much like it did pre-pandemic. One thing is certain, the hospitality industry is banking on tourists returning sooner rather than later. Coming up after the break, how the restaurant industry is changing and the forecast for dining out as we navigate this global pandemic together.
Welcome back. Now, we all have reasons why we travel. Maybe to a beach, maybe it's out here to California wine country, maybe it's the culture, maybe it's the food. And for the food, we'll send it all the way across the country to Buffalo, New York, where Jason Grenauer has more on that.
The reasons people travel are about as varied as the places they go, like here in Buffalo, New York, where people come from far and wide to taste the world-famous chicken wings. Here at the Anchor Bar, home of the original, where it was invented. But the pandemic is forcing people to change those reasons why they travel and forcing places like this to change as well. Piled high, sauced just right, and usually worth the long drive or even the flight in. But not recently.
People traveling longer distances, we haven't seen much of that through the past 8 months.
Patrick Kaler of Visit Buffalo Niagara says the usual culinary tourists that literally come from all around the world simply haven't been making those trips. So the restaurants are bringing the wings to them instead.
Well, there are some places that will actually ship the wings. Lenova is one of those locations here in Buffalo that will ship the wings.
Cooked at home while so many are staying at home. But what if that thing you'd travel for isn't legal or widely available at home?
We're talking about tours. We're talking about any of the other amenities that are specifically catering to the cannabis tourist.
6% of travelers to Colorado in 2019 said legal marijuana was one of the main reasons they came. And according to that same research, green tourists stayed longer and spent more money. So when tourism as a whole dropped out, so did this specialty form of travel.
When you're a state like Nevada, where a significant portion of the cannabis business is due to tourists, the lockdowns and the pandemic lack of travel is going to affect that market much more heavily.
And when your market is a mountainside...
Colorado is a tourist state. We are a tourist destination, whether you're from Colorado or another state.
But when numbers are capped for safety, what ski resorts will lose out on to some degree are those out-of-town dollars.
There are people across the country, across the world, who are going to sit this year out.
An estimated $2 billion was lost in 2019 when ski resorts were closed due to the start of the pandemic. Winter Park Resort says this year they are still welcoming tourists, just like locals, but know it may take another year to return to normal.
You know, we're doing what we can to make sure that this is a good place for people to come and, try to lessen their concerns. But when it comes down to it, it's really up to individuals.
If you travel for the good eats, the smoking tours, or the fresh powder, you've probably been disappointed so far this year. The hope of all three industries, as well as concert tourism, beer and wine tourism, and so many other niche markets, is that the urge to get out we're all feeling will eventually bring people back.
Yeah, Jason, those wings look delicious, making me pretty hungry right now. But when we come back, Russell Haythorne takes us on a road trip and the role that's going to play in the future of travel.
Welcome back. When it comes to travel, for those who aren't quite ready to fly the friendly skies, hitting the open road offers a nice alternative for the cautious adventure seeker wanting to ease back in to the travel scene. With the holidays upon us, even with spiking COVID numbers, hitting the road is not as difficult as it was at the beginning of the pandemic.
If we look at the general travel prospects right now, it is much easier to travel than it was in March or April.
AAA's Skylar McKinley attributes that to what we've learned and precautions many are taking to minimize the risk.
The science is not clear on how safe it is to be in an airplane. It's not clear on how safe it is to be in the train at DIA. What we do know is if you're alone in your vehicle, you're minimizing your risk.
Please take those out of your bag.
AAA says air travel in Colorado was down 45% this Thanksgiving over last. Bus and train travel down 75%. But automobile travel in Colorado over Thanksgiving was actually up from 2019 to 2020 by 2%.
The question you have to ask yourself is this a good idea?
For many, the answer is still yes, because travel destinations by car have changed. More and more of you are looking for outdoor recreation versus indoor activities.
I want to go to the beach. I want to go to a national park. Outdoor self-guided activities are the name of the game right now.
Just take Colorado's ski industry, for example.
Skiing demand is way up. Just ask anybody who's been trying to get a season pass.
This season is going to look a lot different, but the good news is we're going to have skiing and riding.
If you're hitting the road this winter and heading to the slopes, be prepared for a new system and new restrictions at some resorts. Vail Resorts, for example, which includes Vail, Beaver Creek, Breckenridge, and Keystone, all require a reservation to get on the lift. So plan ahead.
If you wake up in the morning and you check that snow report, just add an extra step to it. Go to epicpass.com and make your reservation there and then hit the mountain.
AAA says Colorado's ski industry and expansive outdoor recreation scene have been a huge hit this fall in terms of internet searches for open vacation spots.
For the first time ever in our data, the Denver metro area rose to the #1 slot, and that's because it is such an easy jumping off point for camping, for outdoor excursions, for the national parks.
While that's promising economically, it also means ski resorts and other businesses must be vigilant in minimizing outbreaks.
They're going to do everything in their power to prevent an outbreak from taking place because they have an interest in that.
And while you can still travel state to state, driving south to Mexico or north isn't possible.
Land borders are closed, right? So you're just not getting into Canada right now.
Also, states in red have statewide mask mandates, so keep that in mind if hitting the road this winter.
If it's not safe to go to a big city, where are you going to go? Well, you're going to go to the great outdoors.
If you have any hesitation or fear, McKinley says perhaps it's best to save your money now and gear up for 2021 and beyond, because it's AAA's belief travel will be back.
The second that there's a vaccine, we think that it's going to return back to 2019 levels pretty quickly. Economic confidence is there for the folks who regularly travel. This is going to pass. We're going to be on the other side of this. The world's going to open up. It's going to feel great.
Stay with us. When we come back, we'll highlight what experts are saying are the best places to visit in 2021.
Clearly, it's tough to know where to go or even what to do during all of this pandemic, much less try to figure out what's going to happen next year. But imagine you work in an industry where you have to do just that and try to predict the best places to go in 2021.
We are looking to next year because we're really optimistic about travel.
When it's your lifeblood and your job is to recommend to people where to go, it's all you can do. The way they looked at the best places to visit for next year definitely came with a caveat.
You know, we are looking at the places that we think have done a very good job of responding to COVID, that are going to make people feel safe about going back to.
In the end, there's a hope for 2021, no matter where you want to go.
Summer 2021 is a summer of travel. You should plan for it to be a summer of travel.
Flexibility and optimism are two traits needed for those travel-hungry folks moving ahead, searching for a dream vacation, and where we go from here.
Certainly a lot of places to see, and hopefully we can actually go see them a year from now. Right, Russell?
Fingers crossed, Sean. I'm really hoping to explore the south of France or Italy by this time next year.
The south of France sounds great. Personally, I'd love to go to Australia and New Zealand myself, but hopefully we've restored everyone's faith a little bit in their vacation plans for next year.
Obviously, it's a different world. We've learned a lot, but as long as we stay connected and stay safe, we think the future looks bright. Thank you for joining us. We hope your next adventure is your best one yet.